Hello, my name is Brooke Weaver, and I will be doing a review of the podcast Gaslighting, PTSD, and Testimonial with Rachel McKinnon. First, I'm going to start with some key terms. Transgender is the first term I'm going to start with. This is an umbrella term for anyone who does not identify with their birth gender. This could either be a little boy that grew up to now identify as a woman in their adulthood, or it could be a child that was assigned a gender and now as an adult doesn't identify with any of them. Cisgender is going to be my next term. This is a person whose identity matches their birth gender. This could be a little girl that still identifies as a woman in her adulthood, or a little boy who identifies as a man. Ally is my next key term. This is a self-proclaimed LGBTQ plus supporter. PTSD is my next term, post-traumatic stress disorder, and testimonial epidemic injustice. This is unfairness related to trusting someone's word. Here I'm going to do a quick overview of the podcast that I was assigned. So first I'm going to start with ally culture. Allies see themselves as good people, and this is what this is the woman who's doing the podcast. This is her biggest issue with allies, is that they have done absolutely nothing to make them good people, and yet just because they assign this ally tag to themselves makes them, in their eyes and in culture, in our society, in our eyes, good people, even if they're not. Like I said, this is a self-identifier, so a person chooses to identify themselves as an ally instead of the LGBTQ community identifying somebody else for them. This is considered a get out of jail free card. So if somebody says something that's a little insensitive, and gets called out for it, they can say, "Oh, I'm an ally. It's okay," and therefore it's kind of a get out of jail free card. They don't have to feel guilty for what they did. Allies also react really badly if they are called out, and this is, like I said, the self-identifying thing, that a lot of people take this into their core identity, and therefore if they get called out, they're going to feel attacked, and then they're going to react even worse and kind of dig themselves a little bit into a hole. The next thing I'm going to jump over to is something she also talked about as a good replacement for ally culture, and this is the active bystander culture. So this is kind of self-explanatory. Well, they say if you're in a social situation and you see something, then you should say something. This must be an act in a situation of oppression. So if you hear someone say something transphobic, then you say something to the person who's saying it just to correct their mistake. This title must be earned because you have to actively do something to earn that title. And you can jump in and out of being an active bystander, like you have to keep doing things to prove that title. It doesn't just stick with you like the ally culture does. Therefore, it's a good replacement. Testimonial epistemic injustice. This is when you don't believe someone because of their identity, not because of anything else. It's because of specifically their identity. So in this podcast, they were talking about people with their sexual orientation, and that's why someone is not believed. This is a betrayal because it normally happens with people that are close to the victim, which over time leads to PTSD. And then you get kind of a double gaslighting effect when people don't believe that PTSD can be caused by a long-term betrayal or this continuous gaslighting effect. Gaslighting is what I'm going to bounce right over to because it's under the umbrella of testimonial epistemic injustice. Gaslighting is a type. It's the testimonial type of the injustice. This is someone convincing the victim that their sanity should be questioned, and this discounts the harm that was or is being experienced. The victim also starts doubting their own perceptions, and this is what's really dangerous about this, because they no longer believe their gut feelings about things because they've been told over and over again that they're incorrect or that they're overreacting. I'm going to try and relate this to the class a little bit of past readings. Catherine McKinnon, which we were reading last week, it's relating to her writings because an ally is described as one person assuming a more dominant position over others or over the ones they're trying to help. In McKinnon's critique of liberalism, this is Catherine McKinnon's, sorry, they both have the same last name. Catherine McKinnon's critique of liberalism runs in the same vein because it assumes that men are the dominant or standard gender. Rachel McKinnon is saying that ally culture is assuming dominance and that the standard over transgender and in turn is perpetuating oppression. This is just kind of saying the same thing about a little bit slightly different topics. They're just saying that liberalism is talking about the standard of what is to be strived for, and in the liberalism argument, that is the women should be the same as men, and in Rachel McKinnon's argument, it's saying that straight people are what to be strived for, so they can be an ally, therefore they're helping their LGBTQ plus community. So it's really just a power dynamic here, same as in Catherine McKinnon's writing. I'm also going to bring it back to the very, very beginning of class when our lovely Professor Jen was talking about her broken plate incident. She was talking about how when you go to a party and you accidentally bump into a plate and it falls on the ground and it breaks, just because you didn't mean to cause harm doesn't mean that the plate isn't still broken. So therefore you have to do something to fix your mistake. So really what that boils down to is a harm is still a harm. And this comes across, this has been kind of a theme throughout our entire course of whether it be sexism, racism, classism, or what have you, it really just boils back down to a harm is still a harm and you have to fix your mistakes. So I'm going to bounce right into my opinion. I agree with a lot of things in this podcast, that gaslighting happens every day and is extremely harmful. I believe that gaslighting can lead to PTSD. This is long-term harm. And I do believe that allies need to work on their approach a little bit. What I don't agree in this podcast is that she really kind of really harps on allies and their reaction to being called out in public. And this is just my opinion, but regardless of reason, a self-identifier is sacred. So it doesn't matter why you bring something into your core beliefs or your core identity. If it is being challenged, it is completely normal to feel attacked and to act appropriately. And that's where the key word is appropriately. I know she's kind of more attacking how people react to feeling that way, but I think she kind of skims over in her readings and her podcast that she makes it sound like it's not a normal reaction, and that feeling attacked is kind of the ally's fault, and not spreading blame or spreading reasons around like she should. The takeaway, which I really liked actually, was she was talking about when allies are called out, or when anybody is called out in any social situation, that she believes that there's 4 different ways there's 4 steps that you should take right off the bat. And she goes, breathe, believe, acknowledge, and commit. When someone calls you out in a social setting, it's never a fun thing to experience. So she says to take a deep breath, and that's the breathe, and believe is believe your accuser that you made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. It is okay. And really think that the person who's calling you out probably cares about you and wants you to not make the mistake in the future and not be embarrassed. And so it helps, both people in the situation. Acknowledge the harm that you may have caused and apologize for it. And then her last one is commit. Commit to never doing it again. This is where the work comes in, and this is where the active bystander kind of idea comes into play, because if you actually put the work into fixing your mistakes and trying hard the next time, then that's what's really being more of an ally than what ally culture is today. I ended up taking a stab at making a meme. This is just the hand-drawn fry meme, and I can lift this up a little bit. And it says, not sure if you're intentionally gaslighting or unintentionally gaslighting. And that is my entire video. So thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it.